Hello friends! Before we get started today, let's go ahead and do a little rewind to the very beginning of January to remember why we're here. So here are all 12 books. Woo! And the book I'm going to open is this one. As I have expressed, I have no idea what it is. It's blue. Oh! How to Stop Time by Matt Haig. I actually think this is a perfect book for right now. Random recipe chooser. Oh. So this is a Marsala prune cake, but this is the cake and this is what I'll be making this month. Now that we're all cut up, we remember that I was supposed to finish this book and bake this treat, and both of them are done. And I'm really excited about it because now I get to talk about them. And it also means I've finished one of 12 books and one of 12 bakes. And I'm off to a good start. I finished January with a good run. So I'm gonna first go ahead and do a little montage of this little baked treat. I'm not gonna go ahead and share the recipe, I'm sorry, but because it's not my recipe, it's Melissa Forti's recipe in her cookbook. I'm gonna go ahead and put the cookbook down below in the description, but I'm really excited to try this cake with you guys a little bit later. But first, we're gonna go ahead and do a little bake montage. I'm gonna tell you a little bit about the book, what it's about, and then afterwards we're gonna talk about the book with no spoilers. And then after that, we're gonna dive deep with spoilers and also eat a little bit of cake. So let's go ahead and jump into the kitchen and watch a little baking montage. I promise it's only a little bit, but if you wanna skip it, you can skip it. But it's really cool and it's really pretty and baking is awesome, but that's my opinion. How to Stop Time by Matt Haig is a book about Tom Hazard who has a dangerous secret. He may look like an ordinary 41-year-old teacher, but he's been alive for centuries. From Elizabethan England to Jazz Age Paris, from New York to South Seas, Tom has seen it all. As long as he keeps changing his identity, he can stay one step ahead of his past and stay alive. The only thing he must not do is fall in love. But what if the one thing he can't have is the only thing that might save him? So we follow a man who seems middle-aged, but he is really 400 years old. He has gained love, found friends, lost friends, and things just don't seem to be looking up for him. So we follow his journey, jumping back in the past, jumping back in the present time, and we get to understand what he's doing and why he's living his life the way he is. I'm really excited to talk about this book because it is quite interesting, but I first wanted to go ahead and tell you what it was about before we talk about what I thought. How to Stop Time by Matt Haig was quite intriguing. I'm still debating on how I felt about this book. I read one other book by Matt Haig, which was The Midnight Library. I really loved this book. I read it about 2 years ago. I gave it 5 stars because I just really connected with it. Just to kind of give you an idea, that book was all about regrets and understanding that everybody lives with regrets and we have to learn how to live with them. We have to learn how to continue on with our life and not just sit and think about what if, because that what if can never be known. And if we knew it, maybe it wouldn't have led to that life that we thought we could have lived. Maybe it also has some negative consequences. We just don't know. So that book was really delightful. That's one of the books that actually introduced me to Matt Haig as an author, and I was really looking forward to picking up another one of his books. So when I unwrapped my first January book and I saw that it was How to Stop Time, I was really excited because that's one of the reasons I bought this book in the beginning, in the very first place, is I wanted to read another book by Matt Haig. How to Stop Time was released before The Midnight Library. It was his second fiction novel, I believe. He is an author of nonfiction. He does talk about depression and anxiety, and that's not a surprise because these books definitely have a lot of those themes and a lot of those ideas related in them. How to Stop Time is about, like I mentioned at the beginning of the little video, it's about a middle-aged man who isn't aging like the rest of us. He ages for every 1 year for us, it's 15 years for him. So he's aging very slowly, and when he turns 41, our time, he's actually 425 some odd years old. It's very rough for him. He's having a hard time understanding what the point of life is, especially if he's living for so long and he has to witness all of these changes, all of these repeats in history of people who not just people, but societies who grow and then destroy themselves, grow and destroy themselves. And he's constantly seeing this repeat, and he's kind of losing the point of life. And you kind of follow his story through what he's doing in present time, so as a 425-year-old in our century. And also we get to jump back in the past and see how he aged and how he changed through the years. So it's not just, hey, now we're following this man who's 425 and we get to figure out his story. It's, hey, we get to see this man grow and become something that he is now, and also understand who he is now. He ends up joining a society that kind of integrates anybody who has this disease. They end up considering it some type of health thing. There are a select number of humans that do have this disease that they're talking about. So, and society ends up growing that has everybody who has this disease in it. It's quite interesting. I have more to say about that later, but just to kind of get an idea, this one person is in charge of the society. He collects all these people, and the idea is there's a couple rules. Enjoy life, love the music, the food, the drink, everything about it, but don't fall in love with people. Never become close with people, because unfortunately you're going to outlive those people. And number two, you don't want the secret of your life getting out. The dangerous part of that is maybe the government finds out and wants to test on you and wants to understand why you live so long and use you in experiments and try to go ahead and take the formula or the gene that you have in your body that ages you slower to be able to put it into normal people. So you have the society that's all around kind of focused on protecting the people that have this disease, and he has joined the society. There are rules behind this, not just the rules of how you can live your life, but the idea is you can live in one area for about 8 years tops, because people start to recognize that you're not aging, start questioning it, so then you have to move to a new area, create a whole new life. And it's not like, hey, let's move from Washington to Oregon. It's like, hey, let's move to Washington State in the US to the Congo. Just as an example. So we end up following this man who is Tom, who has changed his names multiple times, who has lived multiple lives, who is constantly becoming somebody different every 8 years. And it's starting to wear on him, and he's starting to question the point of life. So that's the gist of the story. Like I mentioned, I don't know how I feel about this book. I am so confused. I really, really loved the writing style. I like Matt Haig's writing style. I think it's just, the writing is very colorful for me, and so I kind of get pulled in really easily. I like the idea of the plot. I think the characters are interesting, but there are a few things that were missing for me in this book. I thought I liked the plot. I loved the idea of the plot, but I do feel like, unfortunately, Matt Haig was kind of writing in one direction, and there was nowhere else for him to be able to go. So everything kind of ended up coming to a pass, and it had to end, but there were multiple plot points that had to end. So at the very last few chapters, it was like bang, 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 end. And you're kind of like, what? So for me, it was too fast at the end. Like everything had to come to a moment of wrap up, we're finished, we're no longer going to be writing this book, and it threw me off a little bit. I also felt like the plot was missing something. There's a really good back part of the story. I don't want to talk about it because I think it was part of the story that I actually really liked following, so I want to leave that as a surprise for you if you haven't read this book. But I wish there was more in depth of behind the scenes in that part of the plot. And when we got to the very end, it was just kind of like, oh, here you go. And it was just end. And I was like, oh, man. So the writing was great. I liked the idea of the plot. I think it could have been more kind of laid out a little bit more. And the characters were all interesting. Tom was, of course, depressed and heavy on himself, so I could kind of understand like the reasoning behind him. The reasoning behind one of the other characters, who ends up being related to him, if you know, you know. who ends up being related to him, I don't understand their kind of like what happened to them and why they are the way they are. And I think that's part of the story I'm missing. And then the guy who's in charge of the society, I just don't like him. And I didn't understand the point of why people were following him and why people trusted him. And it's mostly because there was nothing to prove his trustworthiness. And so when we get to meet that character, it's just kind of like, I don't feel like there was a reason for people to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to jump into the society and feel like I belong. And I'm not giving anything away in that part. It's just more, I just didn't like his character because I didn't trust him. And he was a character I needed to trust to be able to connect with. So that kind of frustrated me. This is why I'm having a hard time reading this book, because I'm frustrated about small things, but overall I liked the book, except for the ending. So that's kind of like a little fast back end of this, but to be honest, if you like other books by Matt Haig, I think this one is still worth picking up. I think the idea behind it is still really lovely, and I love the fact that the main idea, which I think you can know without being spoiled, is life is short, even for him, and the point is to love and experience and fall in love with music, fall in love with food, fall in love with the things that are around us, but also connect with the people that are around us too, because that's what makes life worth living. Life is great because we don't get to just experience things through our eyes, but when we get to meet new people, we experience things through them as well. So I think the book is still worth reading. I think the idea and I think the theme and the main point of the book is still worth it. So I recommend picking it up if you liked other books by Matt Haig. But I do have to say, if you have not read anything by Matt Haig, I would recommend picking up one of his other books that is really, really well liked first, so you can understand a well built out book, and then like The Midnight Library, but it's just because I love that book. And then read one of his other ones, just so you can kind of have an idea, because I do feel like this one is just not as well laid out as The Midnight Library was. But that, again, my opinion. So that's actually really all I have to say on spoiler-wise. Go read it if you want to. But if you don't want to listen to spoilers, I would say check out now. Or actually don't. I'm going to put chapters in the bottom. At the very end of this video, I'm opening my second book for the year, so February, and I'm also going to be choosing my second bake for the year. So go ahead and jump down into the chapters. You can go ahead and find the little last section and click on that part of the chapter. You won't listen to any spoilers, and then you can figure out what we're going to be reading for February. And if you want to read with me, go ahead and let me know down in the comments below or on Instagram. I'd be happy to have some reading buddies. I always enjoy it, and I think it's really fun being able to talk with you guys about those books on Instagram. That's where we normally have our little book clubs. So thank you, and I appreciate you guys being here. But I'll do my goodbyes at the end. I'm going to jump into spoilers. So 3, 2, 1, spoilers. Oh, my foot fell asleep because I've been sitting on it. Okay, spoilers for this book. But first, I want to try this cake because it's just literally sitting here staring at me. I have to lower you just a little bit though. Okay, now I don't have to sit up so straight. So we're going to go ahead and try this cake. It's quite fluffy. This is made with dried plums, which you probably saw, and Marsala. Marsala is a liquor, but I've gone ahead and cooked the plums with the Marsala for a really long time on the stove, so that way, one, the plums get nice and soft and juicy, and the alcohol gets cooked out of it. So there's no alcohol really left in it at all, but I wouldn't feed it to your kids if you bake this cake. So this is just a cute little bundt cake. I went ahead and made a normal sized loaf as well. Not gonna lie, I already ate that. This is another one because I ate the first one and hadn't done my video yet. So I had to make new little ones, but this one is slightly different because I actually put little plum pieces in there as well. So little dried plums actually inside the dough. So that way it would be a little bit different. And yeah, let's go ahead and jump right in. Or not jump right in, but try a bite. It's really fluffy. It's really soft. Like, it's quite spongy. And we have lovely air bubbles in it. We have lovely air bubbles in it. It's really nice and fluffy and soft, which is great for a cake, especially a cake like this. You want something that's going to be really light and fluffy. I added quite a bit of plums in it that had a lot of liquid in it, so I questioned if it was actually going to not be squishy, if that makes sense. That was a really big bite. This one actually has the addition of little plum pieces inside the cake, and it's such a great addition. I actually really like that. I think I will do that in the future. I love Melissa Forti's recipes. They always turn out amazing every single time I use them, and this is really, really good. If you like a little bit probably more earthier cakes than sweeter cakes, this is probably a cake for you. It has a nice like deep flavor, almost like molassesy. And it has kind of like this like way of coating this flavor in your mouth. It's not sticky, it's not moist or anything like that in the sense of like wet, but it has this lovely texture. It's crumbly and it's soft and it's fluffy, but it doesn't like crumble all over the place. Like, it actually stays together really well. So we have a nice solid cake that just has this lovely, lovely texture. So it's really soft, fluffy, delicious, and it's very earthy. So it's not so sweet, it's not overwhelming in the flavors, but it's one of those cakes where you probably eat one slice like this and be happy, and then eat one maybe like 2 or 3 hours later, like I do. So I highly recommend this recipe. I'm going to highly recommend Melissa Forti's baking book this whole year because I'm going to be baking stuff from her baking book. But this cake is really delicious. It's a dried plum Marsala cake. You might be able to find another recipe for it, but I'm going to recommend Melissa Forti's because that one turns out great every single time. I made it twice. It's so quick. It's so easy. And I made it twice because I literally baked it for the video and then I ate it all. So that's how good it is. So I had to bake it again. And I substituted the sour cream because I didn't have any more sour cream in my fridge. I substituted it with a little bit of mayo, which was odd, but I looked it up online. But I added cream cheese, a little bit of milk, and a little bit of mayo to equal out the amount I needed. And it turned out great. It's still really fluffy and delicious, but I would highly encourage you to use sour cream so that way you get the right sourness levels. I love the cake. I think it's delicious. I'm really happy I baked it. I probably wouldn't have chose this one like out of looking out of the recipe book. So this was great stepping out of my comfort zone, trying something new and adding liquor with plums and kind of cooking that on the stove. That's one other thing about her recipes. I know I'm going into this a little bit more, but that's one other thing about her recipes is some of them, I think, why do I have to cook this for 20 minutes? Why do I have to mix this for 40 minutes? And it actually has a purpose behind it. So her recipes are tested, they're proven, they're delicious. Go ahead and buy her baking book. They're super easy to follow and they're not that difficult. Like I said, I baked this cake the first time. It took me a little bit longer because I was recording myself, but the second time I got out of the shower, threw all the recipes in a pot, or not all the recipes, threw all the ingredients in a bowl while the plums and the Marsala were cooking on the stove, and grind those up, threw them into the batter, and it was done. And I had to bake it. But the baking part is probably the longest part of the whole recipe. Really super tasty, super amazing, and I highly recommend it. And I actually really love the addition of like little plum chunks just thrown in there. I just cut my dried plums really small, mixed it into the batter at the very end, and then baked it like that. Works out really good, and they're not too squishy or soft or gummy, which I really appreciate. So really tasty. Go try it out. But let's go ahead and jump into spoilers for our book after I eat a little bit more cake. And it goes really well with coffee. So it's a great morning breakfast cake, maybe. If you want to be that way, which I'm that way, so. So, spoilers. We're going to jump in and talk about this book. So if you haven't read it or you want to read it, don't watch this part. I've already warned you, but don't watch this part. So this, like I had mentioned in the first half, I liked this book. I liked the idea of it, but the problems I had mentioned in the first part that I didn't want to go too much into detail in is that one, we have Tom Hazard, who I understand his fear and his unwillingness to test out love. I mean, we saw at the very, very beginning of his story when he was, I think, what, 15 years old. And the mother is tried as a witch because the town that they live in, the little village that they live in, the people are noticing that the son is not aging. He should be like 16, 17, 18 years old, and he still looks like he's like 14 years old, and the people are questioning why, and they're like, oh, you're his mother, so you must be putting a spell on him for him to look younger and age slower. So the mother gets tried as a witch, she ends up dying, and so the boy is set free because they said, hey, if she lives, then we know that you're a witch. If she dies, then we know that you're not a witch, which, you know, was not really well thought out. My opinion, though. So the mother ends up dying when this little boy, or not little boy, but young man-ish, ends up losing his mother because he's not aging and he doesn't understand why. That's back in the witch trial days, so back in 15. So that's back in the day in 1623-ish. So the great thing is there's little dates at the top so I can jump back and figure that out. So his mother ends up dying. That's pretty messed up. So he ends up running away from the village that he was living in because of course he doesn't want to stay there. They just killed his mother because he's not aging. So he runs to another town. Well, he doesn't run. He literally just walks. He walks and walks and walks and walks. So we understand why Tom Hazard is the way he is. However, we find out that he ends up falling in love again, which is really great. Love is a beautiful thing, even if it's just loving of cake or coffee. I only have 2 hands, so I can't be magic, or water, or books, or other things, but loving of people as well, friends, family, maybe a partner. So the fact that he is able to find love again is really great. And he falls in love with this young woman who ends up, of course, being older than him and looking older than him, and he still doesn't understand what's happening with him. But over time, he shares his secret with his now lover or wife, if you want to call her, and they decide to continue having a life together. He ends up playing music. He learned music from his mother. He's making money from it. We also get to follow him through these moments of time where we get to meet these historical figures that we all know so well, like Shakespeare and Mozart and just all of these amazing people. And we get to follow and see these transitions with him through meeting these other historical figures. We're going to jump back to Shakespeare. So he ends up meeting Shakespeare, and Shakespeare says, oh, you can go ahead and play music in my plays. You're amazing. So he starts playing music in Shakespeare's plays. And his wife and his wife's sister are selling fruits and everything's going well, but then somebody from his old village comes through and he's like, oh, that kid's a witch, or that thing's a problem, or that. And so they end up having to run away again because, of course, witch trials back then, it's not like they're going to go away. People have witch things in their heads. So then they have to run away again. And so him and his wife run away. They end up finding another home. They end up living there for quite a while. They have a baby, but things again start going sour, so they have to run away again. And it's this constant having to run away. And it's really unfortunate. They just want to live a normal life, but when you look like you're 18 and your wife now looks like she's 30, I don't think it was much of a deal back in the day when you, a man, married a 16-year-old and you're 48. But hey. So we are seeing that his love and his commitment to this person, his wife, is really hurting her. And it's really hurting their daughter's chances of having like a happy life as well. So he decides to leave the family and not keep in contact by any way and just leaves. And that's probably where I started being like, I don't know if he had this much love and this much passion for somebody, could he just leave? And then I think if he thinks it's protecting them, maybe he could just leave. So this is where I'm kind of starting to get more conflicted, is I don't know what I would do in this situation. So he leaves, and over the years, he's miserable, he's drinking, he's just playing music, and he ends up finding out somehow that his wife is dying of the plague. And because he ends up seeing the sister, blah, blah, blah. That's not really important. But he ends up finding out that his wife is dying from the plague. And so he finds out where she's living. He goes to her, and she does end up dying. And during that moment, though, he finds out that his daughter is exactly like him and can live forever. So you know this if you've read the book. If you didn't read it, I hope you're okay with spoilers. So his wife ends up dying, and his daughter, he finds out, is just like him and ages extremely slowly. So the wife says, promise me that you'll find her and look after her. Over time, his goal is to find her. He keeps not finding her, ends up finding somebody else that's kind of like him, and it's a surprise, and he ends up realizing that this is a thing. Somebody ends up dying because they tell him, or he tells them, that he has this disease, and they're like, oh, I'm going to write a paper, but that guy ends up dying under mysterious circumstances. And then that's when we meet the society. So we meet the society, and the main guy at the society, I never remember his name. So his name's Hendrik. So Hendrik is the guy who runs the society, and he's really, really old. So he's been around way longer than Tom has been around. And he's actually coming to the end of his actual life. So he's aged really slowly, coming to the end of his actual life. And he's the one that runs the society. He pretty much makes all the rules for the society. He's the one that created the society. He's the one that says, hey, don't fall in love, and don't get connected to people. I'll give you the money to start a new life. I'll give you the money to live a life. You can choose the life that you want to live, but I'll go ahead. You just have to follow these rules. Simple. But I start questioning it because I'm like, why do they trust him so quickly? I don't know, because other people are being like references for him, but not really. We don't really have that other than one person around them being like the reference, and that one person is part of the rule. After you've lived somewhere for 8 years, you have one task you have to complete to be able to kind of keep in the society. You have to go and find another member that has this disease, and then bring them back into the whatchamacallit, the society. And if they don't join, then you got to kill them, because of course they're going to let out the secret, and it's going to be terrible for everybody. So you have to kill them if they don't join, and then if they do join, then great, they can continue on by following the rules. And this is where the book starts falling apart for me, because I'm thinking to myself, okay, they're safe in the society because they all know that nobody's going to be telling their secret. But how have they been safe in the society for hundreds and hundreds of years? And like, okay, we find out that guy that Tom told his story to, or his secret to, he ends up getting killed in a mysterious way. Well, the society killed him. But that's one time. And if there's quite a few of these people, then how is the secret not out? So there's just some plot points that are just really hard for me to wrap my brain around, and I think I'm thinking about it too much, and that's the problem, is I need to not think about it too much. But we're going to deep dive, I'm sorry. So we end up, he joins the society, ends up following the rules, not falling in love, leaving every 8 years where he's living and changing his identity to somebody else, and then each time he has to go find and recruit somebody. He has ended up having to kill people in the past because they haven't joined the society. He didn't love it, but it's part of the society, right? So we're going to do it, which I don't like. And then one of the things, the reason he's staying with the society, though, is because he asks Hendrik if he can help him find his daughter. And that's one of the reasons he stays with the society. But as the story goes along, you're starting to realize if he leaves the society, he's just going to be killed, because then they're not going to trust him. And it ends up being this really weird kind of idea. And I'm questioning it. Everybody else in my head is questioning it, but nobody in the book is questioning it. And we are only following Tom's perspective, but the fact of like, he never finds like somebody else in society and being like, hey, what do you think of this like Hendrik dude? And never talking about it. It's kind of a bummer. And maybe Hendrik does that on purpose to make sure that nobody actually interacts about what's happening in the background. So his main goal, our Tom guy's main goal, is to find his daughter and reconnect with his daughter. Now it's been, what, 400 years, 350 years, many, many years, probably 400 years since he's seen his daughter. And it's like, how have you not found her? Especially with social media. I mean, come on. But we end up following him to his original home. Tom says, I'm ready to go back. And I'm ready to go back to where I used to live. And he does. He starts having these memory flashbacks and thinking back to that time where he was with his wife and he lost his child and he lost all this love and he has a lot of pain and regret, but then he also starts falling in love with a new person. And you can see his battle of not wanting to interact with this person because he doesn't want to hurt her and just leave, but he is also struggling with the fact that he's feeling a true connection with somebody and isn't sure if what he should do in the situation. And according to society rules, he should say, peace out, I need to leave before I fall in love with this person. But according to his heart, it's saying, hey, stay, let's see where this goes. So there are just a lot, like I said in my first part, there are a lot of plot points and they're kind of getting messed up, but you're seeing how it's kind of running into one area, like it's going to collide, and that's what ends up happening. So I'm talking about his love, and that's actually happening in the last third of the book, I think. And then all of a sudden, this is where I get really frustrated. The plot points collide. And our main guy has to go to do his service as being in the society and has to go get his best friend that he met way, way back in the day and has to encourage him to join the society. He goes and meets his friend and his friend's like, why would I join the society? I'm happy. I've been living in my Australian town surfing for the last like 30 years, which is fantastic. He's a happy dude. He's relaxed, which I have to admit. I've gone to Australia, not for a long period of time, but they're very relaxed. They're really chill. So not surprised that this guy is also very chill. And he ends up going, so Tom goes up and talks to him and is like, oh, you have to join the society, you have to join the society. And our guy's like, no. And we end up finding out that, yeah, he said no, because he's found the purpose of life. He's figured out the joys of life, and one that involves falling in love and being in love and embracing that love. And he had a child with the person he fell in love with. The person he fell in love with passed away, and now his child is getting older. Doesn't have that gene to stay alive for a very, very long time. So he is like 40 some odd years old, and his daughter is 80 some odd years old. And I can't imagine how much that would hurt. I mean, you always hear your kids should outlive you. And I hope that happens to everybody. Losing somebody is so painful, but I could not imagine losing a child. So we see him talking about this, but we also see that he's found the joy in life. He fell in love, he created a child, he fell in love with this child, and he has so much passion and heart and everything. And Tom's starting to see this, and he's starting to see the light, I guess. And then his daughter shows up, just out of nowhere. And his daughter's like, I hate you, you hate me, you told Hendrik that you wanted me dead because I was the only one who knows your secret, and that's why I need to kill you. And then that's where I said, what? What? No, that's not how this works. And maybe I'm wrong. And so then Tom's like, whoa, Marion, don't kill me. This is a lie. He's lying. And then they make up really quickly. And then they go save. They're like, oh, they figured out Richard is actually on the island. And they're going to go kill Richard. Hendrik. Hendrik is on the island. And Hendrik is going to go kill Tom's friend. And so they run to Tom's house. Man, I'm getting everybody's names mixed up. So they run to Ori's house, I believe his name is. Oren. And as soon as they're getting there, Hendrik is pouring gasoline everywhere. And he's like, this needs to be done. And Tom's like, no. And Marion's like, I have a gun. And then Oren runs out with his daughter in his hands, and then Hendrik is like, this is not how it should be. I created the society, and then pours gasoline all over himself, lights himself on fire, and runs off the cliff. Very Lord of the Rings moment. So that was the end. Exactly. I want to know what you guys thought, because I was so disappointed. And then we get like this like nice little wrap up of the package of everybody's end of life and how everybody's working together. Marion is like broken, and I'm trying to figure out why she's so broken, because if she was found by the society should have been taking care of her. But maybe she wasn't found quickly enough. Maybe I missed that point. But the fact is that why is she so broken? I mean, our dude Tom lost his mother in the witch trials, lost his wife to the plague, hasn't had a meaningful connection with a person in 400 years. Like, I understand being broken, but I wish I could have seen a little bit more of her story or understood her story a little bit more, so that way I could figure out why she was so angry. I know Hendrik lied to her and said, oh, Tom wants to kill you because you're the only one that knows his secret. But like, what was the proof behind that? And also, she probably heard loving stories from her mother about how her father loved her so much and that's why he left. And her father, probably so many positive stories. So why trust this weird dude Hendrik who owns this society? It doesn't make sense. I don't understand the trust behind this character. And I think this is where I'm having a hard time. This is actually helpful because I haven't figured out how I feel about this book, but this conversation is helping me. I don't understand why there was so much trust on Hendrik. And I don't understand why so many people put trust in society when there wasn't any proof behind it. I mean, come on. Anywhere we go nowadays, we look up reviews. So there's no reviews on this guy. There's no proof on any of this working. And all he does is have a bunch of money and makes life more simpler for people. And yeah, great. Making life simpler is sometimes really awesome, but it also takes away some of the enjoyment, because if life is so simple, it's boring. And that's the problem we were seeing with Tom. He was getting bored with his life. He saw no point of it. So you can see how I feel about this. So to wrap my thoughts up, I hated the end. I really disliked the end. And I think that's what I'm struggling with, is I liked the idea. I liked the writing. I liked Tom as a character. I felt like he was a little bit of a weak character, but I still liked him as a character. Honestly, I liked Oren, the other dude, more, the guy at the very end of the book, more. And I only saw a couple chapters of him. But I just wish the plot, it could have been longer, or maybe the plot could have been more like layered out. But to be honest, I think that this book was stuck in one movement and it was going to collide all at the very end. Like, we knew how it was going to end, of course. To be honest, I thought Marion was I knew Marion was alive because there was this weirdness about it. So, I don't know. I can't rate this book. I'm struggling a lot with it. I've thought about it a lot. It's been 2 weeks since I finished this book and I can't put it together. So I have no rating. I'm sorry. No rating for this one. I think there's parts of it that are like 4-star. I think there's parts of it that are 2-star. I think there's parts of it that are 3-star. Nothing's a 5-star or a 1-star. You would think I would just land on 3-star, but it's not a 3-star book for me because I still like the point of the book of, hey, life is meant to make connections and be with people, not just as partnerships, but as friends, as people to laugh with, to celebrate with, to cry with, to everything with. And that's what makes life so wonderful, is having those connections. And when we take away those connections, what is there in life? So yeah, there's always cake, but I want to eat cake with somebody like you guys. So yeah, that's how I feel about the book. So yeah, it was good, but I needed more. Okay, I'm gonna stop with the book. I'm gonna go ahead and open up my next book and figure out my next bake. So let me go get ahead and grab the stack of books and also my baking book so we can figure out what we're gonna be doing in the month of February. I'll be right back. Okay. So I have our stacks of books, our stack of books. I'm quite curious on the one at the very bottom because it's the biggest one. This one right here. But I'm not ready for it. And one of the things, I'm gonna say I'm really lucky for this part. Mikhail didn't choose any books that were like honkers, which I appreciate because I could read one. It's just, I would probably just read that one book for the month because I have other things going on. But they're all like averagely weighted. But I think I want to open this one. I don't know why, but this one's calling me. So I'm going to open this one. Ooh. And here's my Melissa Forti's baking book. So we're going to figure out what we're going to be baking next and reading next. Let's go ahead and figure out what we're baking next. So random page. Let's do this one. Ooh, that looks like, oh. I have not baked this, but it's one of the ones I wanted to bake. That's why there's a little orange tab on the top. So I have not baked this. This is a bundt cake, chocolate whiskey bundt cake. I was gonna keep trying to read it, but I can't read Italian yet. So this is what we're going to be baking. I'm really excited. And I think this is gonna be really good. And I hope you guys stay tuned because I think this is going to be a tasty, tasty cake. And the book, for what you guys are probably more excited about, but I love the cakes too, so I wanted to show it first. So I'm going to open this here so you guys can see what I'm doing. I can't. I'm not the best unwrapper when I'm holding it up in the air like this. Okay, ready? Ooh, on Earth, We Are Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong. I've been wanting to pick this up. I'm gonna keep saying that, but I have been reading The Plums by Ocean Vuong, and I really, really like that one. It's called Exit Wounds. I can't remember. I'm gonna put the name up here. I'm sorry. I'm terrible. But On Earth, We Are Briefly Gorgeous is one of his books that he's actually written, his novels. I'm really, really excited to pick this one up. It's going to be, I believe, quite heavy. He is a Vietnamese author, and he writes a lot about pain and suffering and confusion and heaviness, which seems to be a lot of the books I read. I'll read a little bit from the back. I'm not going to read the whole entire thing because you're going to get most of that actually on the end of February. So March 1st, I'll be doing a review on the book and also on the whiskey cake. I'm really excited and I can't wait, but let me go ahead and tell you a little bit about this book so you can look forward to the next video. On Earth, We Are Briefly Gorgeous is a letter from a son to a mother who cannot read. Written when the speaker, Little Dog, is in his late 20s, the letter unearths a family's history that began before he was born, a history whose epicenter is rooted in Vietnam. And there's some little quotes on the back that I'll tell you. Shockingly intimate and intensely universal, not so much briefly gorgeous as permanently stunning. And that was Ron Childs from the Washington Post. Vaughan has taken the English he acquired with difficulty and not only made it his own, he's made it better. That's from Maureen Corrigan by Fresh Air. I'm so looking forward to this. I think this is going to be really awesome. It's quite short as well, so I don't think it's going to be too much of a read, but stay tuned for March 1st. That's when this video will come out, where I'll talk about Ocean Vuong's On Earth, We're Briefly Gorgeous, and we'll talk about Melissa Forti's whiskey chocolate cake. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope you guys liked this. If you guys did, make sure you give it a like. If you guys also actually like this challenge, let me know. I'm quite interested because this is a new one for me, but I think it's so fun and it's making me, again, pick up the books I bought and haven't had a chance to read, and it's making me also bake some of the bakes I've been wanting to bake, as you just saw. So I'd love to hear your opinion, hear what you thought of this video or video series, and I'm really looking forward to next month's reveal and review. So until next time, you guys, thank you so much, and I hope you have a fantastic day and a lovely weekend, and I'll see you guys next time. Ciao!